Move with the times or you'll be left behind. Say yes to progress. Do you want to be a nobody or an everybody?
That was the trailer for the 1927 theatre company's production of Golem, which premiered at the Salzburg Festival in 2014. In this production, 1927 combined projected animations with live performers to create a complete world. Here's writer and director Susan Andrade talking about the idea behind the production.
I suppose we just read the book as this sort of starting point. We went on to looking at the original myth of the golem, which is a Jewish myth about a rabbi who makes a man out of clay and commands this clay man to do his work for him. We're definitely problematizing progress, or exploring the idea that progress, or what we see as progress, perhaps isn't progress.
Backing up the backup.
Zeros and ones.
We like the idea that we're kind of sold this idea that whoever you are and however much of an outsider you might be, if you buy these shoes or get this haircut, you'll be an outsider no longer. You know, you can be the guy in the adverts.
Nobody would expect me, Robert Robertson, to walk into work in a pair of yellow shoes.
Oh, spontaneous.
Very stylish.
How snazzy.
I'd call them jazzy.
Now Golem tells us what to buy, what to eat, where to shop. And I think he's been reading the Daily Mail.
In his book, Early British Animation, Malcolm Cook discusses how animation in the UK developed from three strands of existing artwork: political cartoons, books and magazine illustration, and music hall performance, especially that of the lightning sketch. The work of 1927 builds on this model, thanks in part to the work of illustrator and animator Paul Barrett. Barrett works in an artisanal mode, creating his animations alone from a mixture of found material and hand sketches. We can see this from his solo work, and from his work in 1927, that Barrett is not concerned with the clean, cohesive look for his animations, but draws our attention to the physical construction of his work by emphasising its immateriality. Here is a clip from his short animation White Morning, which is featured at Sundance the same year Golem premiered. In his book, Cook tells us about E.H. Gombrich's theories of primitism in early cinema in general and animation specifically. Gombrich argues that often caricature and animation generated by enthusiastic amateurs often surpassed that which was created by seasoned professionals in humour and appeal. As we can see from these clips, Barrett's work forgoes precise construction and clean animation in favour of broad caricature and a simplistic animation style which emphasises the physical nature of the materials he's working with. The animation for Golem uses a combination of collage, simple line drawings and claymation to create the scenery, some props and even the titular Golem itself. Barrett uses shortcuts in his animation, such as were used in limited animation, which we'll explore in more depth later. These shortcuts may have a lot to do with saving time and effort, as Barrett has to generate and edit his animations with very quick turnaround. But as we can see from his solo work, he has embraced this aesthetic for his small, independent projects as well. In a recent symposium entitled Staging Mixed Realities, Andrade talks about the process by which the show is brought together. The core team is Andrade, Barrett and performer Esme Appleton, along with contributions by composer Lillian Henley. In order to create a seamless mixed reality, the movement, animation and music are conceived and workshopped together in a process that takes months of experimentation and adjustment. Like many other media-based companies, such as the Wooster Group and Robert Lepage's Ex Machina, 1927 used a devised theatre practice, which is one of constant inspiration, experimentation and revision, until they have the production ready to introduce actors to. One feature of the company that uses devised theatre to create their production that is different from 1927 is the absence of the performance during the devising process. Most companies who use this method take the production from concept through experimentation to performance themselves, inhabiting the production from start to finish. Andrade tells us herself that 1927 are influenced by pantomime, music hall and silent movies. In their work we can see references to Winsor McCay in performance interacting with their animated partners and German expressionism in the style of makeup and melodramatic acting. Although the process is a collaborative one, through the description of the devising process and the overall aesthetic of the performance, it is clear that the live performance serves the animation rather than the other way round. Andrade and her team have come up with a specific term for the mode of performance her actors need to use: animacting. The actors rarely turn out from the screen, keeping as close to the same plane as the animation. This meshes with Barrett's mode of animation. Although there are clearly layers of drawn figures and photo collages, there is little in the animation to suggest real depth. Everything exists on paper-thin layers. Therefore, the actors, in keeping their bodies pressed to the backdrops, become just another thin overlay of the animated environment. We see this in the sequences when the grandmother interacts with her phonograph or when she dusts the picture of her late husband. In order to interact with the music player, but still speak to the audience, she keeps her feet pointing to the side and only cheats her body out quarter turn. Sequences featuring characters walking through the street borrow a limited animation style, by having backgrounds move past the actor as they walk on the spot. This is especially evident in the walking sequences featuring Robert. He walks on the spot while the animated environment moves behind him. They even play with exaggerated movement, as when Robert walks through a building site, causing him to pitch wildly back and forth. This method also allows for some stage trickery. Complicated sequences where actors would fly through the sky or are picked up by huge monsters are achieved by the same method of keeping the actor rooted to the spot while the animation moves around them. During one of the final scenes, it also allows Annie to whirl round the stage, then appear in a completely different location, as if she had travelled through the inner workings of the giant machine, when all she actually did was move from the lower stage door to an upper window. Barrett favours other limited animation tricks, both in his background characters and the golem itself. As there are only 5 performers taking on the multiple roles, including providing the on-stage music to which everything is carefully choreographed, scenes which take place in crowded venues, such as the pub and the street, are populated with animated characters. These are photographs of the main actors and other people, no doubt other collaborators or friends of the company, which perform a single action on a loop. There is also no emphasis on smooth animation. Each movement is only made up of a few frames, animating, if not on the 3s, then certainly on the 2s. The golem, animated by using claymation, is the only main character who is entirely animated. Just as we see in the limited animation style, there is an economy of movement in the golem. He only moves single parts of his body at a time, and when not actively speaking or moving, remains entirely still. The actors also adopt this minimal movement. Part of the reason is for practical purposes. In order to interact with the animated props and scenery, movements must be precise and hit marks exactly. But it also retains the limited animation aesthetic and helps the live action blend into the animated scenery, with making sure that the two elements inhabit the same world. Barrett's animation style also influences the costume design for the live characters. Barrett's animation favours bold caricatures, clean lines and a distinctive colour palette. The colour palette for the production is agreed upon in advance by Andrade and Barrett during the devising process and informs the mood of the various moments, as well as giving the piece overall coherence. The costumes the characters wear conform not necessarily to the actors' bodies, but to the same bold lines as the animation. For example, the uniforms of those that work at the binary backup department are covered in 1s and 0s, and Joy, who is in charge of stationery, dresses as a large pencil. As the characters are taken over by the Go company's influence, we see increasingly stylised clothing. first worn by Golem 2 than the main characters. The animation also negates the need for stage lighting. The high quality and high saturation of the projected images actually require that no additional lights are added to the stage, as this would spill into the image and reduces efficacy. So any need for additional lighting and colours are provided by the animations themselves. Just like a music hall act, the production is very easy to transport. Golem toured the country extensively before being taken abroad, and other productions have been made in collaboration with certain art institutes to therefore start life in a multitude of venues. So this production is not tied to a particular venue or set of actors, as long as the animation has its screen and the actors know where to hit their marks. It can be played virtually anywhere. The thing that makes 1927 so recognisable is their cartoon aesthetic. The productions they have tackled have ranged from folk stories to legends to adaptations of famous operas. But their style is instantly recognisable, owing largely to Barrett's primitive animation style and the influence that has on the whole production, from the overall design to the way the actors move about the stage. Without his distinctive cartoons, 1927 would be a very different theatre company.